When you check out at the pharmacy, you see the journey from idea to medicine, thanks to our intellectual property system, or IP for short. IP safeguards inventions, like a new way to prevent seizures or lower cholesterol. And IP supports competition from other brands, then lower-cost generics, which are 90% of prescriptions filled in the U.S. Innovation, competition, lower costs, thanks to IP. Learn more at phrma.org/IP Works Wonders.
Welcome back to the show, guys. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you the easiest investment that I've ever made in my life and explain to you why I took it using two simple questions that I asked myself. Now, before we hop into the show, make an investment in the Trading Coach podcast. Not monetarily speaking, I'm not asking for any money, but by giving me your time. If you're brand new, take the 10 episode challenge, meaning go back to 10 episodes. You can pick random ones or just Google search Trading Coach podcast and the subject of your choice and give 10 episodes a listen before you decide if you want to make this podcast a part of your regular routine or not. All right, let's hop in. Now, I invest in gold and silver. I have traded oil. Oil was probably the easiest investment I've ever made in my life. The easiest, yeah. So I invest in those. I never actively traded any of them. I invest in the S&P. I invest in different indices and stuff like that. Yeah. So I look at those as my investment tools, my longer term investment tools. Oil, going back to the easiest trade of my life, and this is where I'll tell you what. So you can imagine that I talk to a lot of aspiring traders. I talk to a lot of aspiring investors, and a lot of them come to me and they're intimidated, right? And I'm sure you guys probably have been here before. A lot of them come to me and they're intimidated because, like, investing is scary. Like, now investing, it is scary, right? But it's not as scary as you initially think, right? A lot of people are scared of investment for two reasons. One, money is an interesting subject for a lot of people, right? Money is a big emotional driver. Money is important to many of us. Money creates our mood swings. It is difficult to put money at risk, right? It is very difficult for people to put money at risk. It's weird because people will gamble all day. Like, people will bet on sports and do fantasy football and blah, 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 blah. But, like, they're afraid to invest in the financial markets, right? For this is stupid, right? I never got this, right? You're willing to gamble and bet money on a sporting event where you have zero impact or influence of the outcome, right? You think you do because you watch sports all the time and you read all the reports that come out and you think you're an expert, but you have absolutely zero impact. And if you watch any sporting event, you'll know that weird stuff happens all the time. The weirdest of stuff happens in sports all the time, but people are comfortable betting money and putting money at risk on sports. Yet, when it comes to the markets, it's this wild, crazy gamble, right? Like, it's the stupidest thing ever because, like, especially if we go back to, like, indices, right? If you just invest money in the S&P on a consistent basis, and if you go back and you've done that for like the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever you may, you would have made a massive amount of money. If you invest in any blue chip stock over the last 20 years, and just do it on a consistent basis, do it once a month, you would have made a lot of money, right? It's pretty much guaranteed to go up in the big picture, where sports is completely random. So I never got that, but a lot of people are intimidated to invest because the world makes investing seem very, very scary, right? We know that the news, you only really hear about the markets on the news when we're crashing. So it's this big fear crashing. You hear the stories about people losing their money in retirement and blah, blah, blah. And that's scary to a lot of people, as it should be. But they also think that they're not smart enough. They don't have the knowledge to do it because you see these commercials. You have to go to this Ivy League school and have these degrees and have all this experience and have these licenses to understand the market. Where the reality is, and this is what my mentor taught me, the reality is you could be a very good trader just based off of a common sense approach, right? A common sense approach. And I want to tell you the easiest investment I made in my life was oil. So oil, and you can take a look at a chart if you want, oil plummeted during COVID. It plummeted to the point where they were paying you to take barrels off their hand. It plummeted, right? And it was as cheap as it's ever been. And everyone was fearing. And this is kind of like doing the opposite. JB sent me an email the other day about, can I do a podcast about doing the opposite of everyone else? Here's a great example where everyone's trying to get rid of their oil because COVID shut down the world and no one's doing anything and the environment is healing itself, right? Everyone is ditching oil. And here's where the big picture kind of focus comes in, right? We know that COVID was here. It was a very rough time, devastating time, lots of deaths, lots of layoffs. It wasn't a good time by any means. But let me ask you this simple question. Did anyone think that the pandemic was going to last forever? Right? Two main questions I asked myself. I said, Q, hey, Q, is this going to last forever? Is this going to be the new normal where none of us are driving, none of us are going out, and everything is shut down? And my answer to that, I think you guys would agree, was no, right? No, it's not going to last forever, right? Nothing lasts forever. The second question, and this is knowing kind of crowd behavior, crowd psychology, just human nature, right? We made these changes during COVID where, again, we're not driving as much, where factories aren't burning as much, you're not destroying our earth as much, right? It was cool. There were like maps that showed, right, out in LA here in the US is probably one of the most smoggiest and contaminated places in the world, and there were maps showing like the dark cloud above LA, Los Angeles, that usually exists, and then like after whatever 3 months, 4 months of COVID, that dark cloud was gone and there were clear skies and stuff like that. So like we actually cleaned up our planet, which was pretty cool by just like not destroying it. But of course, knowing human nature, so the next question is this going to last forever? No. Are we going to go back to doing exactly what we were doing before? And of course, yes. So are we going to go back to producing goods? Are we going to go back to driving cars? Well, yeah, right? Because human beings don't learn. We're going to go back to doing whatever we did. All right. So is oil going to go back to its normal pricing? Is oil going to stay cheap forever? Are we no longer using oil? Of course we're going to use it. Of course. Even if we did make steps to going green, that doesn't happen overnight, right? That doesn't happen overnight. That takes years and decades to do, right? So it's simple logic. Oil was cheap as hell. It's only cheap as hell for a very specific reason. It's not going to stay cheap as hell once we go back to doing the things that we were already doing. So why not just buy it up? And you can see the price chart in front of you. Look at 2020 and COVID, right? The big dip down here. It went as low as 71 cents. 71 cents, typically hovering around like 15. Come on now. Common sense, right? So I invest in commodities, and this was probably the easiest. This was the easiest trade investment I ever made. I forgot who was here. It was one of our live room members. We did, I think, Cody. Me and Cody did it at the same time. We were just talking back and forth, who do we want to buy from? Like, me and Cody were like, dude, are you seeing this? Like, yeah, like other Ford, like a lot of car companies like that too. So like, yeah, it's, I don't want to dumb down investing and trading to make it seem like it's overly simplified, because there are some nuances to it. You need to learn certain things, but from an investment approach, I was always taught common sense. Don't get fancy. Don't do stuff that you don't know. Use a common sense approach. And if you can ask yourself a few questions and you can get very direct answers to those few questions, you're probably on the right side, especially when everyone else is doing the opposite. So, yeah, and I wouldn't say actively trade them, but I invest in commodities and indices and stocks. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you're new, remember, take that 10 episode challenge. If you're not new, you've been listening for a while, do me a favor, leave me a rating and a review. I know a lot of you guys have been listening for a very long time, but you haven't taken the time to leave me a rating or a review. And I just ask that favor of you. It's the best way you can support the show. It's the best way that we can continue to grow and make our way up the charts to hopefully the best ranked trading podcast out there. We're getting close, but I need your help to keep climbing that ladder. So rating, review, 10 episode challenge if you're new. And until next time, plan your trade, trade your plan. Take care.